We're live.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, the first day of September, council agenda session. Can I get approval for the minutes, please?
Move to approve.
All right. Minutes will stand as approved. Going into, we have no ordinances on first reading or final reading this afternoon under our council agenda session. Madam Clerk, if you'd read 7A under resolutions, please.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a release of declaration of restrictive covenants for the Dogwood Manor property located at 959 Gateway Avenue, identified as tax parcel number 145CB006.
Okay.
I'm good, Mr. Chair. I
Councilman
spoke with
Oliver.
Mr. Beelan about this item last week, and we're ready to move on.
Good deal. 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to enter into an agreement with the Chattanooga Area Regional Council of Governments, Southeast Tennessee Development District, for the management of the city's Environmental Protection Agency Brownfields Cleanup Grant Program for a 3-year term commencing September 1st, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2023, with an option to renew for an additional 1-year term for a total of 4 years.
Councilman Mitchell.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just have a question of the council, really. Making 3-year agreements and this term is over in a year, less than a year. I just, is that what we want to be doing as a council in our last 6 months or so? And I don't have an answer for that. That's a legitimate question. I just wanted the input of the council.
Councilman, I mean, I think I could answer that in a couple of ways. One, with a new, possibly a new council, new mayor, some of these items, it may be to their advantage to not have to deal with right away. If in fact this is the way to go. I mean, I think if we're prudent and smart about this, I think we may be taking care of some items that they might be appreciative of.
I'm in total agreement. I thought that very thing, but I'm thinking, okay, what about 2 years or 1 year or so? I can see what you're talking about is like in the first year they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to vote against this. Don't get me wrong. I just had the question.
Yeah. Councilwoman Burrs.
Are there any fees connected with this?
Hold on just 1 second. Miss Lydia, would you bring in Richard Beelan, please?
Yes, sir. He's on his way.
All right.
Hi, Councilwoman Burrs. No, ma'am, there are no fees involved with that.
Okay, so they're just going to manage the grant for free for us.
Yes, ma'am. So it's a part of the dues that we pay Southeast Tennessee Development, a part of it, so
okay.
it's paid for that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Beelan, while you're here, the 3-year agreement and the Southeast Development District, who else might we contract with?
I'm not aware of anyone that would be able to do that.
Okay, so this is pretty much almost a one source, I'm guessing, one source provider.
Well, they provide these services for other government entities in the area.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Beelan? Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
All right, Miss Lydia.
Yes, sir.
Let's item 7C, please.
A resolution authorizing the Director of Wireless Communications to enter into a service agreement with Motorola Solutions for integration of the Motorola Astro radio network with the microwave and multi-protocol label switching system, MPLS, upgrade in the amount of $747,199.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lydia, can you see if Pat Rollins is out there?
Sure.
If he is, I was going to just have him go over this item for us in about 30 seconds, if he could.
I'm bringing him on.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rollins.
I am here, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I think Councilman Ledford had a question or comment towards you.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, will you just give us a brief synopsis, Cliff Notes version on this? I mean, it's got a pretty good price tag on it, just to enlighten us.
Yes, sir. This is the integration of the radio network into the microwave and MPLS network. We approved the MPLS and microwave purchase a couple of months ago. We're just finishing up the phase one of that. This is this service agreement will allow Motorola to integrate the 25 some odd sites into the new microwave network.
And that, can you elaborate just a hair on that a little bit
Sure.
more?
What they will be doing is there'll be some hardware, four switches that will be included in this at the prime sites. Those are the sites that kind of control everything. Those are two in North Georgia and two here in Hamilton County. And then the engineering services, which is the migration of the radio site links from T1 base to Ethernet, which means they're going to have to touch every router, system router in the system and rewrite all the configs and do all the engineering work to integrate the two together.
Okay. I'm going to not pretend like I understood everything you said.
Made sense.
I knew you would. I knew you would to you, Vice Chairman. I knew it would to you. But is this is part of an ongoing process that I know you've been working on?
Yes, sir, it is. It's an ongoing project that we started, like I said, at the beginning of this budget year. We had asked for the money in the last capital request for the microwave and in 20 capital requests for the Motorola integration. I will also add that because we have it's a large system that encompasses several sites up and down from, basically from Whitfield County south, because we're a large regional system now, all the way up to around the Knoxville area. Like I said, so it's going to be 25 sites that they're going to be migrating doing all those router reconfigs, which is a lot of engineering services for that, and the MPLS configs too, so that the radio system will work with the microwave system. The microwave system is nothing but the backhaul. That's what transports all the zeros and ones back and forth between, and all the voice and data between all the different sites and the master site, so that everybody can talk. All of our about 250 different public safety entities spread across the system.
Okay, that helped a lot right there. All right, Pat, I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I had on that. Thank you, Pat.
Anytime.
I certainly hope you'd be able to stand up in front of a neighborhood association and explain all that, because I'm not sure that I could.
And either.
I'd get Vice Chairman Smith on the phone.
Give me a call. I'll come with
That'd
you.
be a smart move. Miss Lydia, let's start off. Let's come down to 7D, please.
A resolution to confirm mayor's appointment of William Glasscock to the Beer and Record Board representing District 8 with a term expiration of July 31st, 2022.
Okay.
All right. E, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointment of Veronica Park to the Chattanooga Historic Zoning Commission.
Okay. I see no hands. We'll move on down our agenda. We do not have a departmental report this afternoon, but Lydia, would you bring Chief Hyman on? And this is this is going to be a surprise for him, but I want him to talk about the academy that he's advertising for.
Yes, sir.
Huh? I'm at home. I'm in the middle of a meeting. All right.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Hey, could you just briefly touch on the academy that we're getting ready to advertise for, and about how many slots we have? A little detail of it, please.
Yeah, we're looking to hire between 16 and 20. I know that's not the full 30 that we're looking for, but our budget just simply won't support it right now. But we are being able to hire some, and we're hiring some folks with experience, and looking at the applications, I've already had quite a few interest in it. So.
Okay. And you're looking mainly for those that's already got the certification in their EMT?
Yes, we're looking for folks that already have their EMT or first responder certifications and their Firefighter 1 certifications. This is the first time that we've done this in the Chattanooga Fire Department. We typically do the 6-month academy and pretty much indoctrinate them from the very beginning to the end. But with these individuals already having experience, because staffing is critical, I can turn this academy around in under 10 weeks, which is a phenomenal difference from the 6 months. They're still coming in at the starting pay like a normal recruit would. But this will at least get me some folks in seats in trucks and help ease up on some of my staffing restrictions.
Sure. Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Chief, we talked about this when you gave your report a week or so ago. How many people do you feel like you're going to be able to get? I mean, do you feel like you'll be able to recruit the total number that you have budgeted? You think you'll be short, or do you think you could put more people into the class if you had a little more funding?
I don't think that I'll be able to do the full 30. My budget just simply won't support it. I submit a request to fill those 390 positions in operations every year, along with all our support divisions. And unfortunately, with this COVID environment, that's just not going to be the case. Even with the 16 to 19 to 20 slots, it's still going to put a strain on our budget and put our budget in jeopardy a little bit. So I'm trying to at least get something out of it with what we've got.
Chief, you've got a lot of positions that aren't filled right now, but they are budgeted positions, correct?
That is correct.
So is that funding being used to make ends meet elsewhere instead of going to staffing?
We always plan on some vacancies. Every year we plan on some vacancies, and a lot of those vacancy dollars do pay for some of our operational costs.
All right. So that's actually our problem and not yours, Chief, but I appreciate you doing what you could to help out there.
Yes, sir.
How many people will you be able to put through an academy then? You said 18 to 20?
I'm looking for 16 to 20.
16 to 20.
Yes, sir.
And are you confident you will find at least 16?
Yes, I am confident that we have already looked at it. I've had a number of applicants already that we're looking at. I'm pretty confident that I'll get within that number.
All right. I'm gonna have a few more budget questions for Chief, as I know that this conversation is going to come up in the next week or so, Chairman. But I'm good for now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Chief. When do you close the application?
October 3rd, I believe.
Okay.
And
right.
we will start an academy probably first week of February.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Chief while we got him here?
Good. Thank you, sir.
Great work.
Thank you all.
Chief, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Council, if you would pull up your purchases for this afternoon and see if you have any questions concerning purchases for this afternoon's agenda. Councilman Gilbert.
I don't know. I asked a question about 2 or 3 weeks ago about the position of crew worker 1 should be listed as janitorial for janitorial services, and never did get an answer. And I know this is coming up. Do they have an answer to that yet?
Let me bring Ms. Sullivan in, and then she can quarterback us from there.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon again, Ms. Sullivan.
Hello, good afternoon, Council.
Did you hear Councilman Gilbert's question?
I did, about the crew worker 1 custodial classification, I believe, right?
Correct. And have we put it in motion?
Great. We have a couple of things that could be in motion, but we have gone a different direction rather than hiring more crew workers in Public Works as custodians. And we do have that in YFD, but we went a different direction in Public Works.
So we have not changed the classification from crew worker one to custodian, correct?
We have not added, I mean, we certainly still need crew worker ones, right, for other areas, but we have not created a custodial crew worker one carve out for public works. No, sir, we have not. It's ready and it's written, and, you know, we can do it, but we have not gone in that direction from public works. And we can bring Justin Holland on to talk about that a little bit more, about some of the things that they've been able to do. With COVID, cleaning has been different. So it changed everything up right when we were about to make those kind of changes. You remember at first when we talked about it, you may remember that we were going to go a different direction and move someone who had been with us for a long time from parks into that role that we needed, and to help with the cleaning at City Hall campus. And then when COVID hit, we had all of that was February, if you'll recall. And so then we stopped all those changes in March, and now we've just been having to do a different type of cleaning in March with different cleaning services. So since March.
Yeah, I remember some of that. I remember that the person that they're trying to switch over did not want to go to that route since they had started there.
Exactly. So then we were going to post as the custodial, but then March happened. So
we're not in the future going to have a listing for custodian, because see, all this came up when they said they couldn't find nobody to do
that's
the
right.
work.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And since they had a crew worker one, people did not know how to apply.
Just to do custodial work. Right. It was confusing. I agree.
So Justin, I can ask Justin later on more in detail.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great. We've talked about it a bunch, so he is ready to have more discussion about when we would shift to that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Miss Lydia. I guess that's all the questions we have about purchasing for this afternoon. All right. Let me switch back over. All right, if you will look at your September, that says September 1st agenda. I think we want to look at our September 8th agenda. Next week's agenda is see if there's anything on that agenda that sticks out that you would like to ask a question or comment on. Councilman Gilbert, is that a new hand or is that an old hand?
That's an old hand.
Councilman Ledford?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we'll cover this in planning and zoning today, but item C, District 4, it's listed. That should be District 5. And okay. I believe there was another one. District 0, item F, case number 2020-0093, I believe should be listed as District 7 for next week's agenda.
Phil, you got that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we touched on our future considerations a little bit during strategic planning. Any questions or comments concerning any of those items other than Public Works and Transportation, which we'll be going over here in just a few minutes? Okay. If there are no other items that need to be brought before our agenda session this afternoon, we will now turn the floor over to Councilman Mitchell for Public Works and Transportation Committee. Councilman Mitchell, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Can I get a minute of approval?
Motion approved.
Second.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Anybody not okay with that? Doesn't sound like it. All right, that sounds good. Looks like Mr. Bailey might have a pretty easy time of it today. We're going to go to Public Works first. And the first resolution, or actually all the resolutions on here for, as far as the 2-week agenda is concerned, is Public Works. And can we start Tuesday, September 8th, 7G, please?
A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Hamilton County relative to the Courts Community Service Program for fiscal year 2021 between the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County for an amount not to exceed $60,000.
I do not see a hand. Okay, we'll go on to resolutions. Again, you know what? I'm a little bit confused because the resolution 7G, the first one, should that have said September 1st instead of September 8th?
You know what, both,
It's a Roman numeral.
Yes, that should be September 1st at the top.
Okay, well, we just read September 1st resolution. You'll see that tonight. All right, now we'll move on to next week. 7G, please.
A resolution authorizing payment of the annual 2020 to 2021 GIS application support to New Origin Incorporated for maintenance and support of GIS field and mobile applications for the Water Quality Program in the amount of $35,000.
All right, I see no questions. Looks like H, I, J, and K have to do with a similar subject. Mr. Chair, would you prefer we read them all and then find questions, or one at a time?
well, let's go ahead and read them all, and then we'll take them as a group, like we would vote on them.
Okay, let's go H through K, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 30020 was adopted on August 6, 2019, relative to the agreement for the closure, post-closure plan for the City of Chattanooga Solid Waste Processing Facility with the State of Tennessee Division of Solid Waste Management by deleting an amount not to exceed $37,991.61 and substituting in lieu thereof an amount not to exceed $38,675.45. A resolution to amend resolution number 30021 is adopted on August 6, 2019, relative to the agreement for the closure, post-closure plan for the city landfill with the State of Tennessee Division of Solid Waste Management by deleting an amount not to exceed $1,588,003.30 and submitting in lieu thereof an amount not to exceed $546,300.95. A resolution to amend resolution number 30022 is adopted on August 6, 2019, relative to the agreement for the closure, post-closure plan for the city landfill lateral expansion area 3 with the State of Tennessee Division of Solid Waste Management by deleting an amount not to exceed $7,886,230.73 and substituting in lieu thereof an amount not to exceed $8,028,182.88. A resolution to amend resolution number 30023 is adopted on August 6, 2019, relative to the agreement for the closure, post-closure plan for the Summit Sanitary Landfill with the State of Tennessee Division of Solid Waste Management by deleting an amount not to exceed $1,574,774.19 and substituting in lieu thereof an amount not to exceed $1,424,995.67.
Okay, I see Councilman Henderson, Gilbert, and Ledford in that order. Are we going to want to bring Justin Holland, or who are you folks going to want to hear from?
Well, I want to bring Justin Holland on here to kind of explain this to me, what we're doing here.
Lydia, there is that American flag. He's coming. Hello, Mr. Holland.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, Council.
Mr. Holland, could you explain this to me to where I could explain it to a neighborhood association if I had to?
Sure, about our landfill performance bonds.
Well, well, just in regard to all these resolutions that we're amending a resolution.
Yeah, so these are resolutions that you've previously seen annually, and the state actually tells us how much we are required to maintain in a performance bond or equivalent cash or securities. This it really is intended to ensure that we have adequate financial, or we're in an adequate financial situation for proper operation, closure, or post-closure of our landfills that we're operating. This is from TDEC. It's required that we coordinate that with them annually. They tell us how much we have to put back in order for us to be environmentally sustainable and ensure high quality practices at our landfills.
So these all refer to performance bonds.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct?
And their annual resolution amendments that you see each year. We have 2 landfill sales at Birchwood. We have a landfill at Summit, and then at our wood recycling and compost facility, which also co-located with that is a household hazardous waste facility. All of those require this type of performance bond.
Okay, and this refers specifically to the ones we're closing or have closed?
No, any landfill that we are currently in a post-closure or operating status with. So some of our landfills are in a post-closure status, and we still have to maintain those landfills.
Yeah.
According to TDEC. This is and annually you see the adjustment because of the condition of the landfills is either aging or we're winding down the operation of the post-closure events at the landfill. Other landfills such as Area 3 expansion you will see is significantly higher because it's currently in operation. Summit, however, is significantly lower and continues to be reduced because it is considered a closed landfill. And it's actually in post-closure status.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
You okay?
I hope that's easily explainable to a neighborhood association. If not, you can call on us. We will be happy to help you do that.
Good deal. Thank you. I may call on you.
All right, so you good, Councilman Henderson?
I am. Thank you, sir.
All right, Councilman Gilbert.
So you're saying, Justin, that the reason why it's so high, we currently still use that landfill now, correct? Okay. Justin?
Yes, sir. I'm looking. Let me make sure I know exactly which landfill I is. I just need to look through the documents here.
That's Birchwood, I'm assuming.
I believe Birchwood is actually in resolution 30020. But let me make sure, unless you've read it and are confident of that, I will need to go back and look and make sure I line those up correctly to respond to your question accurately, because we don't clearly in plain language identify those, and I have to go back and read the resolution that it applies.
Yeah, I understood about the summit, but I just curious about Birchwood.
So Birchwood's still in operation. Birchwood phase area 3 is still in operation. Area 2 was in closure, and then we still operate area 3 of Birchwood and the compost, the wood recycling, compost, and household hazardous waste facilities. So there are 2 that are closed. There are 2 that are operating.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I got it, Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Hey, Justin, when these numbers first come out in the resolutions and then they're amended, can you walk me through the process and timing as to how we arrive at the final number? And I'm assuming that number you said, from what you alluded to a minute ago, was determined by TDEC. So there has to be some sort of assessment or an overview or a final look at it.
Sure. There is a calculation. There's a method for calculating how much we're required to maintain in the solid waste processing and disposal rules that are set forth by TDEC. I can be happy to send you those rules. It's not easily explained here to explain to a community group, but there is a method to how the TDEC commissioner requires us to maintain those.
Okay, so it's a two-part to get to our final step.
Yes, sir.
At least. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. I've sent the council just now the TDEC's processing solid waste rules that has that calculation.
Be great reading. Thank you.
All right, I see no more questions. Are there any more questions on the September 8th agenda of Public Works before we move on to future consideration items? Okay, I see none. We're going to move on to future considerations, but I'd like to change up a little bit how we handle this. If you have, I've always asked, hey, do you have any questions of these that are here on future considerations? I had a conversation with Mr. Holland yesterday, and he's asked that you either wait to take the answer offline, or if you would want the whole council to get the answer, give them a little bit of time to get you an answer, more likely when it appears on the 2-week agenda. Is that okay with everyone?
Good with me.
I think they're still making sausage on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
All right, so these future consideration public works items, is there any questions you want to throw Justin's way right now that he can research for you and get you something either offline or as a council? Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah, just on one about District 5, just the location. Have we chose the location? I know it's about a consultant, but I'm just curious of the location of that tanker. You can get back with me later on.
I believe, Councilman, that is actually in District 1. But let me clarify that. I believe the district's indicated incorrectly. I believe this is related to the Ham Road wet weather storage facility as a change order.
Yeah, this dealing with a consultant, which, you know, I know you got to get a consultant to do whatever, but I'm just curious, have they decided anywhere in District 5 about this tanker?
Yes, sir. We have nailed down there is a equalization facility that will be installed at the rear of our property at the Wood Recycling Center. We've gone through a number of community events that we've hosted, input sessions, and fielded questions from neighboring properties and other interests. So we have nailed that down. I'll confirm that this is, let me confirm that this is a change order or a new project. I'm confused, I think, by both the amount and the district, but I'll confirm that. And do you mind if I call you in just a bit?
Yeah, you basically answered the question already. You already answered. I just want to know the location. You already told me about the wood recycling area.
Yes, sir. And thank you for the question. That's one of the reasons we want to do it in this way, so that we can receive questions and make sure that we are able to answer them at our next committee meeting.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, you okay, Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody have any other questions for Justin Holland, as long as you will agree that he doesn't have to answer them right on the spot, at least correctly? Councilman Gilbert.
Are you asking about anything else or just on future?
No, I'm asking, do you have a question that you'd like to share with Mr. Holland and the council?
Well, I asked it earlier.
It needs to do with public works.
Well, custodians does. I just want to get an understanding of the actions they got put in place for custodians. And I got a question also on that part. If we have custodians currently with the city and one have to be replaced, do we replace it with crew worker 1 language, or do we replace it with custodian for that position?
Well, that's a good question. Anytime that we have a position and we can better clarify what the expectations of the job are, we'll work with HR to do that. We've done that in several regards. Recently with COVID, we've had to, we've both been able to retain all of our custodial help. We haven't had any turnover so far that we've had to post one of those positions. We also are under some budget restrictions where positions are difficult to fill, and we are doing everything that we can to use all of our resources to fill those positions. So I believe the answer is we could easily recruit that position as a custodian rather than a crew worker.
So the answer is that we can, if we had someone that was replaced, we can say it could be a janitor, because janitor is still saying crew worker 1.
I believe it can easily, yes, sir.
I'm gonna say it's already in place, so we can go ahead and, because one of the problems was in the future or in the past, it was saying that we couldn't find no one for custodians. That's why we were doing so many contracted out with custodians. And that's when we asked that word, well, why don't we change the wording of the crew workers so people can apply for that. And I know that we got a contract coming up on custodians again. Coming up soon, or tonight.
Was that a question?
It was kind of a question, yeah. In other words,
I did see a custodian contract at the police department.
Right.
That's on the agenda tonight.
Right.
Was that the question? Was that your question?
Right. So this is for Metro custodian. Is there a special skill for this since it's in the police department?
I would have to yield to the police department. It's not a public works contract. I believe this contract is, it's from the police department. I'm not sure exactly what's required from the contractor.
If you're finished with Mr. Holland, Mr. Gilbert, we'll bring Mara in if you'd like her to take a shot at answering that question.
Well, you answered some of the questions already. I got one more that you can go.
Okay.
Do y'all still use pink slips, Mr. Holland?
Written, as in we used to use a pink slip. It was a form of documenting personal leave time. Is that what you referred to?
Well, pink slip in general.
We have used a pink slip to document personal leave time in the past, and I believe during the COVID protocols, we did go back to using pink slips in lieu of individuals having to share a computer. They were using pink slips as a means to avoid additional contact, but I can follow up and see exactly where we're at. That's changed. I'm sure, as you know, things changed rapidly during COVID, and I just need to follow up and find out how those are being used throughout the department.
Well, can you check and see when we stopped using pink slips before COVID?
Yes, sir. I can find out how we use pink slips now and how we've transitioned since implementation of time clock to allow individuals to request personal leave time. It's an operational question. I just need to dig in. There are 6 divisions and several supervisors in all of those operations. Things changed quickly throughout COVID operations, which is everything's been pretty abnormal. But is there a specific problem with using pink slips I need to be made aware of, sir?
Well, no, I think last week said that we don't use pink slips anymore. And I was curious about that because I know Public Works still use them. And I just wonder why we still use them since he said we're not using them. And if we got a system set up for not using them, why don't we just go ahead and go to that system?
Yeah, not all of our employees have a desktop computer. So that is the reason why.
Okay, I was curious about. I thought that. Well, I asked about it later on. I thought pink slip is just to your management team that they'll take that and put it in the computer.
That's how it's used, sir.
Instead of sending it somewhere else. That's why I was checking on.
Okay, so Mr. Holland, when you do a little research, will you get back with Councilman Gilbert offline? Any more questions? Okay, I guess I will ask. We're teed up, or the administration's teed up for a YFD facilities report. They've organized themselves and are ready to go. We don't have Councilperson Coonrod, who asked for that presentation, the council pleasure proceed, or do we want to put it off until a later date? Or and I hate to do that to them because they rush to get ready, but what's the council's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear what they have to say because I may have some questions surrounding that I thought about.
You ready to go? Okay, now that
Ready to
council,
go.
you just say you want to go too?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you two mean more to me than anybody else on this council, so I'm going to say we're gonna proceed. All right. I think we're going to start with Ms. Sullivan, I believe was my instructions. So could you bring her in, and then we'll see where it takes us from there.
Yes, sir. And did we want to keep Mr. Holland in?
No. I'm gonna let Ms. Sullivan call for him back if that's necessary.
Sounds good.
And by the way, the other 6 of you, I was just kidding.
My first order of business is to call Mr. Holland back.
I knew it. Gosh, it's been happening to me all week. Okay, bring him back.
I will do it.
Oh, you get such a big kick out of that, don't you, Ms. Sullivan?
Ooh, Councilman
I
Mitchell.
remember that. Okay. Okay. Where do we go next?
I would also like to use a lifeline and call in Mr. Steinman and Mr. McKinney and Dennis Malone.
Man, that's pretty helpful. Those are good lifelines.
Thanks. I like being surrounded by good people.
Yeah.
All right. And I would also like for, if we can do it this way, for Justin Steinman to be able to share his screen. Is that good?
Yep.
He looks like a person that would know how to do that.
Yes.
I'm not sure how to take that, Councilman.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for having us. So we are going to report today on YFD facilities maintenance, big projects that we have done over the last couple of years. And then we'll also give you an idea of what our facilities master plan will give us over the coming future. So the screen, please. Thank you. And if you could go to the first slide, Justin. There you go. Thank you. So our maintenance funding over time, you can see the numbers here, and we can email this to you so that you can use it for anything that you need. But this shows you over the last few years, just on maintenance, again, that this is what the funding has looked like. And you can see how we've been working to increase our maintenance funding, as well as the amount that we're spending on construction. Since fiscal year 17, we've budgeted over $16 million for YFD construction, separate from these maintenance dollars. And the link there's a hyperlink under fiscal year 16 that we can send you as well. That is the YFD facilities plan for fiscal year 16 that some of you may remember. It looked like this, and it was distributed to y'all then, and it had what our plans were at that time for, this is what gave us fantastic facility safety and security upgrades for emergency lighting, outdoor security, with security systems and cameras, and lots of HVAC replacements, etc. So that was one of our first iterations of a facilities master plan that we did with y'all's help. In 15, I think this was really worked on in 15 with the COO at the time, Brent Goldberg, and the chief of staff at the time, his honor, Travis McDonough, with members of the council. So that work has been completed, and then we have continued our maintenance over time. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason McKinney now to talk about just the last couple of years to give you a deeper dive into the maintenance that's been done. And Dennis Malone is here to help give him any assistance he may need.
All right. Thank you, Maura, and thank you, Council, for having me. Looking at over the last 2 years, we have really tried to focus on all of our roofs and HVAC units to try to make sure that they're all up to speed. A lot of them needed replaced. We started several years ago, we started replacing some. And as you'll be able to see, over the last year, we did about a third more, and then we'll finish up replacing the rest of them in this next fiscal year. So we will have the roofs which are needed to have secure, then we can start the other improvements as needed throughout our center. So, looking at the roofs, Winter Park, Watkins, and then several of our centers, and then the Heritage House all have been replaced and are completed. HVACs, as you can see, there's some of them that are in design. So design means that they are looking at the plans, making sure that it'll work, how to get it all in place, and then several of the other ones have been installed and are completed. Finally, on the bottom, the foundations, after you get the roofs done and all the HVAC all going, the foundations kind of the next thing that we've got to make sure are solid. We had 3 of our centers that, due to settling over time, really needed a lot of work. And so those were Glenwood, John A. Patton, and Tyner that we have put major work into to get all of them secured up. Next slide, please. All right, and so beyond the big pieces of work that need to be in the very expensive but needed work of the roofs and HVACs, going to the centers that were really in need of some interior work. Glenwood has received a lot of work last year, doing all kinds of painting, pressure washing, and we also, due to some leaks in the roofs, we had some mold that we needed to remediate. So Glenwood's taken some care of. And then Brainerd, you'll see some work that has been completed here, and we'll also talk more about what we're doing there. We have a divider curtain that divides the gym in half. It was inoperable. We were trying to get it replaced earlier this year, but then we had COVID, then early voting, then COVID. But we are glad to say that it is now complete and it is operational, and it looks really good in there. So we got that divider curtain in there. We also, if you haven't been by, I really encourage you to buy Brainerd. We did some exterior cleanup and to prep for the mural, and the mural is now complete, and you can see it from Moore Road, and you can look back and it really makes it pop and show that there's some activity going on there, and it just looks really, really good. So we're glad to have that mural through Public Art and help us get that installed. So, and then also Tyner, the whole front walkway coming in had settled, and the doors, you really couldn't get the doors open, so it had to be totally removed, refitted, and the whole new entranceway there at Tyner. So those are some major improvements we've had done. Next slide. Also, Frost Stadium is one of our landmark softball complexes. It's used by us, and UTC uses it, plus other locations come in and use. When we have large tournaments, that's usually where we have our championship games and our big highlight games. But it is aging and needed some repair. So it's been, the interior and exterior is painted with lighting. And also a lot of our locations have been improved for ADA compliance. Parks has helped out quite a bit. They've done ADA compliance around a lot of the parks, and our centers sit alongside of parks, so we have benefited from the ADA compliance. So we highlight it here at Frost, but there's also several of our other locations that have been improved to be compliant. And so got that. And then a Warner Park pool in the splash pad area, we poured a new apron so we can have an additional tent and awning there, so that we can have more rentals and have larger crowds and just be a better experience there. So those are the things that we did last year. And then coming up this next year, We've budgeted, have had all these items have been budgeted for. All of them have plans and have the progress has started for all this work to be completed. So Johnny Patton actually has two things that we're trying to install an HVAC system into the gym. That has never had air in there. So it's in the summertime, it is hot, and we can't really use it. But we're going to get an HVAC system installed there to make it more tolerable. Also, the boiler is every year we try to turn it on to just have problems. So we're looking at the replacement of the boiler. That'll take some time to get the plans and stuff installed on that. And also our admin building at Watkins Street, the HVAC there is just, its life expectancy is over, and we always have problems with it. So we're looking at getting that progress going. And then, we are finishing up our different roof replacements. Tyner is the next one to get replaced and get that completed. We've set aside for the East Lake YFD, we're going to tear down half the building and replace it. But then the half that's there, the gymnasium that's currently there that we're going to remodel, it still needs HVAC and a new roof on it. So we've set aside funds for it for whenever we can get to all that remodel happens. We'll have funding for that. It's similar to Brainerd with the room divider. We've got Glenwood on here that we need that roof done. And then finally, some of the things that we are looking for, some smaller projects but are still in need, new gym floors at North Chattanooga and Glenwood. And then those electronic access key cards coming into all of our centers. So that way it makes it easier for security to have those there. And then a few of the projects here, you can see that there's several things at Brainerd that we're working on and pushing to complete, and they kind of all working together. So we have a company that's coming in that's going to do the pool ceiling while it's closed down. They're going to pressure wash and then paint the pool ceiling. And as soon as they're complete with that, they move on to pressure washing the entire exterior because it needs a lot of cleaning on the outside. So we'll get that done. And then kind of a new piece, but when we got that mural done, it was so nice that we also want to make sure it's seen at nighttime. So we're looking at doing some lighting there, so that way it can be lit up during the nighttime. We do have one issue at Brainerd where we're trying to replace the bleachers, but those parts are on hold from China due to the COVID, and we've been waiting for the parts to get here to complete that. But we're hoping that that'll be sometime soon, but we just don't have an expectation on the timeline there. And then finally, we talked earlier about needing to work on the foundations of a few of our buildings. And in order to prevent us having to do that again to others, we're really working on the draining and make sure that is up to par, so that way the water don't roll back and mess up the foundation and cause it to settle more than what they are. So a lot of projects that we are doing, some bigger and some smaller, but all of them are in need of things that we're doing across the city for all of our centers. And next slide. I think the next slide here, as we start looking to future cost and what all this is going to look, I'm going to turn over to Justin Steinman to talk about the fundings.
And one other thing to add as far as facility is that we should have gotten in those earlier slides where repairs to our Head Start facilities are included in these funds. And there's currently roof replacements for Avondale and Cedar Hill underway, as well as lead paint abatement with last year's capital funds. And then there will be additional projects coming this year. Oh, and I accidentally jumped ahead. So a lot of the work that Jason was referring to that's occurring in FY21 is being funded through this 1.7 million. Those funds also fund improvements to the DRC and City Hall and other major city buildings. But by and large, as we've been bringing YFD facilities up to speed, repair and maintenance wise, most of those expenditures have been going to YFD buildings. And then there's also a dedicated cost center for Head Start capital improvements. May remember this Quality Matters Capital Fund are funds that are being appropriated through United Way that are also for early learning centers. The site improvement requirements for YFD centers is, when we first started with Avondale and then Eastlake, the funds that we budgeted were for the building and for a very small radius around the building. So I think starting 2 years ago, we started budgeting some additional funds to cover site improvement work around the centers. And so this was additional site improvement money for Avondale, as well as the YFD center improvements is a combination of additional funds for Avondale, as well as funds for just kind of miscellaneous improvements like the security enhancements that Jason mentioned. And then you see YFD East Lake renovation, that's additional funds for YFD East Lake partial demolition and expansion. When those bids came in, they came in significantly over even the additional funds that we budgeted here. And so we're planning to take that back to bid and have bids back in November, hoping for, a better construction market that will, hopefully bring those bids closer to what we have available. And then the last is some additional money for the YFD Head Start building replacement, which would be for YFD administration, as well as replacing one existing Office of Early Learning Head Start facility. Any questions on those items?
I do see a question from Councilman Henderson.
Yes, sir.
Well, he might want to go ahead. My question was for Jason and some of the items that was on his list. Councilman, I don't know if you want to go ahead and go get through Justin's part and then go back, or
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. That sounds like a good idea. Go ahead, Justin, and finish up your section.
All right, and then our last section is talking about facilities master planning. A lot of these questions I think related to YFD maintenance have been just questions of, how much are we spending and how much do we need to be spending on those facilities and our others. So the city has actually over 300 insured facilities and properties in our properties portfolio. That includes things like YFD centers in City Hall, but also a lot of those are things in our enterprise funds like sewer pump stations. But there's a lot of different things that we maintain and take care of. And we budget for maintenance for a variety of things each year, but it's difficult without a facilities master plan to have the full picture of what those maintenance needs are across all facilities. So one thing I've really been trying to work on has been improving our understanding of what our maintenance deficits and long-term needs are. And so, those are things that we have been addressing through, or two current efforts are the overhaul that Public Works did of the fleet replacement program, so that we're more sustainably replacing our overall fleet and replacing those things that need replacement the most first. And then the TAMP, the Transportation Asset Management Program, which is underway right now and will help us understand the current condition of our roads and how we can sustainably maintain those better over time. So our proposed facilities master plan, which was originally funded in FY18 and then received some additional funds in FY20, it's getting ready to go to RFP. We felt like additional funding was needed in 20 to really fully fund a citywide facilities master plan. And we also, with the advent of COVID, it's making, I think, everybody stop for a minute and think about how facilities and what kind of space needs we're going to have in the future. So we wanted to take a little bit of a pause while we kind of saw how those things were affecting the use of city facilities and go from there. So really broken into three components: a facilities audit, identifies and provides recommendations on maintenance needs, the required and necessary upgrades to existing facilities, and then also looks at where it might be better to replace an existing facility with a new one. The space needs analysis tells us over 10 years, based on staffing and other use, how much space departments are expected to need over that period of time. And then the facilities master plan and consolidates it into basically a 10-year facilities plan that will help us understand how we can sustainably fund our facilities and what we need to be doing over time to maintain them at the level that I think our residents expect. And Councilman, that is the end of what I have, and I'm certainly.
Well, let me, Justin, I have one question for you. Is this, I heard you have an RFP, but a facilities master plan, I get the feeling that is not budgeted and you'd like to see it budgeted in the future, or is that budgeted?
It is budgeted, sir. And it would not cover, just to be clear, enterprise funded like any sewer facilities, but we do have $500,000 available for this plan.
And that will RFP, did you say in November?
No, actually, I'm getting it to purchasing this week, so it should be out before then, I hope.
Are you going to award something before next April?
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Okay, that's it. All right, so now I will go to Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, sir. And my questions go back to Jason on the HVAC replacement at Johnny Patton. You had in one slide in design, and then another slide you had finalizing purchase order for installation. One must be incorrect. I wouldn't think that you could do a purchase order without having a finalized design. But at the very least, what's our anticipation for an installation date? What's your best estimate?
Yeah, so it is at the finalizing PO for the installation. We hope to have it in place around mid-November is our idea, and hope to have it installed by then. As long as we're still able to move the voting down to a different wing, then we will not have any slowdowns for the installation. So mid to late November is our completion date.
Of when the unit will be installed and
Yes.
functional? Okay.
Yeah.
Also, gym floors for North Chattanooga needed terribly bad. Is that something that's just on the list that's recognized, or is there funding set aside for that?
There's funding set aside. We actually, Public Works and us had a brief meeting to kind of talk about what we would like to see and what our expectations were before they start reaching out to architects to design the floor. But there is funding set aside for those two locations.
Would that go back with the VCT?
We will look and see what the prices are. We've asked for prices for for the rubber flooring, but also for wood flooring to see what we can afford out of it. So we've asked for both pricing. So we'll have to see what the bids come back as.
Okay. And when would you like to see those floors installed?
I would like to see them installed, preferably, before the spring's up. All these things, time we go through and do the architects and get them out for bid. But I think that a lot of that's just going to depend on installers, how quickly they can get to them. But that'd be ideal to get them in by then.
Yeah, good luck on that. But that money is set aside in capital budget.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Jason, good work on the Heritage House, the roof, the HVAC, a lot of work done on that. And I was over there the other night and I noticed there's still some tornado damage to the fascia on Heritage House. If you would get with me offline and just let me know when you expect to have that repaired. Several folks are asking. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That needs, I was out by there the other day. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Councilman Oglesby. He's muted. You're muted, Councilman.
I got you. Yeah, I see where we got some funds set aside for replacing the existing HVAC and the roof. Now, about a couple of years ago, we actually allocated some capital money to do some serious replacement. And I know we had a number of community meetings where we looked at the perspectives and made some changes. And now, long story short, I'd like to know where we at with that.
Councilman, can you be specific about which building you're speaking of?
The East Lake YFD.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, so we have money set aside from 2 years ago. I think, if I have to go back and look at the actual, the dates that the money was set aside.
Yeah, it was 2 years.
Okay, so, and we did all of our homework, and we, did the community meetings and found out what the community wanted. We actually even went and got the architects. And then when we put it out to bid earlier this spring, it came back over $1 million more than what we had budgeted. If you look on this this slide, or I guess the slide previous to this, then we have $725,000 more that we are putting in there. So once we're going to get that money in from this year, added to the money that we have previously put in there, and we will rebid at this this fall to try to get the money to, hopefully the market is better so we can have a, the cost will come down on the bid for the completion, plus with this extra money in there, we're hoping those two will meet in the middle and we can go ahead and get started on the building. So a lot of it had to do with the cost of the first bid. And then, so we put in some more money and hoping that and also hoping that the bids will come down at a better, better rate when we rebid in the fall.
Okay, but that's okay. You said it came out $1 million over. You got 725,000 that I just saw. So that still leaves 275,000. So are we looking to come in under that $1 million? Is that what the goal is?
Yeah, the goal is that it was when we bid it out this spring. Even some of the ones that would normally bid did not bid because they had a lot of projects that they were working on. They even, just talking to a lot of the groups that would normally, construction groups, it's just a very highly competitive market. So we're hoping that to have a more favorable market for a bid, and we'll be able to reduce those bids plus this money and kind of, like I said, kind of meet in the middle.
Okay, and what's the timeline again on it? I thought you said something about the spring, or was that another project?
We're looking at November for a rebid, Council.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and how long will that bid be out before it closes?
Probably. Dennis, are you on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, typically a bid runs for about 30 days, plus or minus there. So we're looking to come out in early October with the bid package, then take bids hopefully by mid-November so that we can get it on the agenda before the end of the year and approve so that construction could start over the winter, probably February or March timeframe.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Dennis, for the update.
Great question, Councilman. I have one follow-up to that. I'll ask Justin. Justin, what's the strategy if it comes in over again on the bid?
That's a tough one, Councilman. We've certainly on multiple projects in the last few years, we've had them come in over, and there's a number of approaches we can take, and we have taken a number of approaches. One certainly is to look at the scope of the project and look at opportunities for either reducing the scope or value engineering elements of it. But a fundamental thing that we don't want to do is sacrifice, all the benefits we get out of rebuilding a center or building a new park. And so obviously there's a point of diminishing returns at which we say it's not worth trying to value engineer or reduce it. And so then we look at, okay, how much in additional funds are needed to complete that project? And I mean, we have, examples of projects where we have majorly cut the scope in order to complete it. And we have examples of ones where we, over multiple years, came back and added additional funds, both to, as we were moving forward, maybe the scope wasn't even sufficient, and we discovered new things that it made sense to do. I think Avondale is a good example of that a project that evolved over time to fully meet the needs of the neighborhood and desires of the neighborhood. Yeah, we have to be pretty strategic about it, and that's why we are waiting a period of time before sending it out to rebid again, with the hope that the market will be in a better place and that more contractors who have sufficient bonding capacity are able to bid on it.
Okay, so you're going to do something. You added some money. You're going to do something similar and expect a different result, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, particularly when we looked at East Lake, when the neighborhood looked at the initial design, they came back and the architects had a pretty great idea of, and we're trying to be responsive to neighborhood input, which was they really wanted a new gym. And the original plan was to renovate the existing small gym and then add on some. So this new plan is build a new gym and then basically put all of the other functions, subdivide the old gym and do that. And so it's also an instance where we want to be responsive to what the neighborhood is asking for and not build a center that isn't reflective of their input. And so I would say, given the factors that led to that coming in over bid, much of which was a lot of our local contractors, we don't have that many that have the bonding capacity that they can actually bid on this, and that the market should look different enough that we are hopeful that there will be a different result. It's not just a matter of time, but also a matter of what's being built in the market and who's available to bid on the project.
Okay, I wish you good luck. I haven't seen the market loosen any. If anything, it's tightened more. But I would just recommend that you have a strategy B if it does come in over again, to where you can quickly shift. Because I mean, and I'm not going to speak for Councilman Oglesby here, but the good people of East Lake certainly deserve something to happen soon.
Agreed.
So, but you guys are capable, and I'm sure you'll figure something out. So thank you very much. I don't see any more questions. Do we have any? And I hesitate to make this comment while she is absent, but this report today shows me something, at least in my opinion only, that is far from a system that needs to be condemned. And so I just want to thank you for your efforts and your times over the last years, and keep up the great work.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
I'm trying to raise my hand. I can't. Can you stop sharing the screen for a second?
Certainly.
I was trying to raise my hand. I couldn't. I apologize. One of the questions I want to know, Chair, after this YFD update, do we have any understanding of when they're going to open our centers, or how that looks coming up here in the future, near future, since we've done these updates, or since we had this update? I'd like to know that.
Sure, I'd be happy to chime in, and Jason can as well. So we're trying to be as safe as we can, and trying to watch the numbers. We're all becoming epidemiologists in our spare time, right? As we're watching all of this and trying to make the best decisions we can, and working with the health department. And right now we've had a new request from, sorry, my phone is ringing. We've had a new request from the Hamilton County Department of Education has requested that the entire community come together to support our kids who are working virtually. And they are asking for people who have space and the ability to welcome virtual learners into their spaces. And we have spaces with YFD centers. So we are right now putting together a plan that will allow our YFD centers to open as virtual learning centers to support the students. And if we do that, we need to keep them safe for those environments. So they won't be open to the general public. Still, they will be virtual learning centers for students during this time. So that is the plan that we're working on right now, and going to be bringing it to y'all ASAP. So you're getting a sneak preview right now, but Jason McKinney and Coach have been putting a lot of work into it, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to get this going.
Okay, thank you. I just was getting a lot of questions about, with the schools opening and how it's working is, like, what are we going to do with the centers? So thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Great question. Great questions. Anybody else? If not, I'm going to adjourn Public Works and Transportation and turn this podium over to the good gentleman from East Brainerd for Planning and Zoning. Take it over, Mr. Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that so much. Great committee report, great questions, great presentation. Welcome everybody to Planning and Zoning for today. If I can get approval for the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Very good. We'll take those. We will jump right in. I believe Mr. Bridger is still out of town today, probably on an airplane. So Mr. Schultz, if you want to bring him in, Lydia.
Yes, sir.
And while we're doing that, on ordinances for final reading, we have two items, A and B, which we have already taken a first reading on. If you have any questions, if you do not, we'll move on down into resolutions. We have several items to cover today. I'm looking for hands and see none on those two items, A and B. So we will move on. Mr. Schultz, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Council.
How are you?
I'm doing well. You're correct. John is still in Los Angeles.
Very good. So hopefully he can get out.
Yes.
So we're going to move on. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I'll share
All
my
right.
screen.
We've got an hour and 15 minutes, but I think we can cover ground very quickly. We've been doing it very well recently. So
Oh, I
let's
thought you promised me an hour tonight. I'm sorry. I'll change my
Well,
presentation.
Yeah, I know, but my colleagues are working hard today, and I want to give them a little break before 6.
I understand. We'll go quickly.
Yes, sir. We'll make sure we cover everything thoroughly. Resolutions, planning, item F. You want to talk a little bit about the zoning code assessment that's on our agenda. And we're going with a company called Camiros. I don't know if you, Miss Lydia, do you see Karen Rennick in attendance? If you do, would you bring her up in case anybody has any questions? Am I correct in that, Mr. Schultz?
You're correct. Karen will cover the zoning code assessment.
Okay.
Part of this.
All right. So if you have any questions about the zoning code assessment, that will be the company called Camiros. I hope I'm saying that right. Karen, am I saying that correctly?
You are saying that correctly, yes.
I did a little research. I'm not seeing any hands. I see Chairman Henderson, but I did a little research on my own because I think that's very easy to do, and with the internet. So I looked them up and I had some questions, but nothing that I think we need to cover here. So I do see Chairman Henderson, if I can go to him real quick. Chairman? You're muted, sir. I know what you said.
Thank you. Thank you. Karen, in a nutshell, what does 93,000 get us?
My question.
It gives us a thorough overview of the existing zoning ordinance. The one we have now has not been touched holistically in decades, if not longer. I think we have amended the zoning ordinance 38 times in the past 5 years. And you have another amendment before you tonight. So instead of that piecemeal approach, the idea is to take a look at the zoning ordinance in relationship to other codes. We have a long list of things between LDO and RPA that we would like them to take a look at. What zones are being used, what zones are not, where are we using conditions, but really look at that whole process. What's outdated needs to go away. Where do we have definitions that need clarification? We want to be able to address emerging uses. What's coming down the line that we want to be able to provide an opportunity for our community. So this consultant firm is a nationwide firm. They've done projects in the Southeast and all over the country, but they give us kind of that, that this is what's going on kind of across the nation, and gives and assesses and lets us know what we need to do. It is a technical report, so there will not be, we won't be adopting anything coming out of this. It gives us a playbook and an implementation plan that we can move forward and determine which of those changes that we want to tackle and when.
So they're just going to make some recommendations basically that we can implement at some future date. Any parameters that we're giving them, and let me be a little more specific. I think in Chattanooga, in our communities, many have fought for traditional R1 neighborhoods. Have we made that clear to this consulting firm?
We have. one of the things we were most interested in is the firm understand the culture. You know, we feel that's very important, and that's one of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about in the consultant interviews, because we wanted, and then we spent a lot of time calling their references where they've done other projects to kind of get a feel for how did they interact, were they respectful of the culture of the community, and that's really where we're going to kick off. We
Good.
did, I will give them credit for being very well-grounded. They've done this a lot. They understand the approach. I think they're very kind of solid in their way of thinking. So yes, we have conveyed that. We also conveyed, you know, there's some new opportunities to allow maybe some better residential affordable housing that we'd want to take advantage of. So we kind of have that scale of things we want to preserve to things that we maybe want to see change, and then they can look at all of that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel like you were reading my mind. So let's go.
That's a scary thought.
That's a very scary thought. You are true. I'm not sure who was first between Councilman Mitchell and Dr. Burrs, but I'm always going to go with Dr. Burrs first.
I know, baby.
Thanks, Darren. So Karen, I guess my thinking was along that line and expanding it a little bit. Chattanooga is a pretty special place, and there ought to be a way that we can expand and meet the needs of affordable housing and yet save the integrity of our neighborhoods. We're different from a lot of places, and I'm saying that in a good way. And so I would hate to hear about, you know, this business, but everybody all over the country is doing this, and so, and like, I don't really care. I want I want careful growth, careful change, because there's a lot of really neat things about Chattanooga. But what I was really thinking about, and John and I joke about this, change can happen very quickly while we're thinking about it. And we should be ahead of the curve. So these people are going to make recommendations to us, you know, and I get that. How long is it going to take for us to come up with a code that's workable, that's not hampered by a lot of bureaucracy, and yet protects our areas? Because change is happening very fast, and we don't seem to be able to keep up with it. So help me, what are timelines?
So this project is expected to take 7 or 8 months. And really there's gonna be 2 things coming out of it. One is gonna be, I think we'll get a list of simple like housekeeping, things that will help with enforcement, where we have redundancies, where things aren't clear, that really are not gonna change any policy. So we would like to move quickly on that. The firm is also tasked with reviewing and providing input on the draft urban zones that RPA is creating. So Brian and his team have spent a lot of time developing that. When they get far enough along that they've looked at code, have a good feel, done some peer research, they're going to give input on that so we can be moving those urban zones along. And then we're thinking there's going to be kind of the second phase where we go in and look at some of their recommendations that might change policy. So don't know what that would look like yet, but this is really laying out RPA's, you know, approach for zoning for the next few years. So get the simple housekeeping definitions, let's update it. Let's get those new urban residential zones in place and the new standard or structure that the new zone should look like that have been recommended, and then move forward with some of those harder changes that will take a lot of stakeholder input that we're going to have to really do the hard part of that public process about, but that we need to do to make sure we've got the correct tools in place. So I would say some quickly and some a little longer.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just one more. So, and I'm not saying it's not needed, and Brian, you've done a great job. What are we thinking about for my side of the ridge? What are we thinking about? Because as Brian and John well know, with change comes some entrepreneurs that are challenging our neighborhoods in things that we just aren't addressed in the code. And therefore, especially during this COVID, they seem to be having carte blanche to mess with us in our neighborhoods. Is there any thought about this?
I think if I'm hopefully answering the question that you need answered, I think one of the challenges that LDO has with enforcement is sometimes the language isn't clear, or there's definition, or people are pushing the kind of the boundaries of those codes. Well, we want to work with LDO and tighten that. What do they need to help enforce what that code really should be? So one of those things is what is happening out there that they're struggling with enforcement, or really need a better language or a better tool. So I think that is intended to kind of provide clarity for both LDO and the enforcement arm, and also provide clarity for someone who might be thinking that's something they can do that's not really the intent.
That's one of our goals too, is to make the zoning code more user friendly with graphics and rendering so people can utilize it more.
Okay, thank you.
You good, Dr. Burrs?
Not really. I'm watching neighborhoods go down.
I understand.
What they're doing is a good first step.
Yes, ma'am. I agree. Thank you. Councilman Mitchell, thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Councilperson Burrs stepped all over my questions. Even though
Sorry about that, Clyde.
You did it much better than I could have done. But it brought up another couple of questions. I think I heard you say I was going to ask the length of this, and you said 7 or 8 months.
Yes.
And then on the follow-up question, and you kind of got into this answer, but what are your all's priorities to how to deal with this information first? And it sounded like urban, you're going to start with urban things you're already working on. Can you say that again?
Sure. So the first, once we have the assessment recommendations in place, our plan right now is to go with what I'm going to call housekeeping, like because policy changes often require a lot more discussion and input. So we would like to wrap up the assessment and immediately go into some cleanup, tightening of the ordinance, maybe some of those graphs that are charts or graphics that Brian mentioned. So we want it immediately to wrap up the report and implement some of the recommendations in it. I'm calling them housekeeping or low-hanging fruit, the things that we don't think are going to be particularly impactful to people. It's probably more on the city side of the shop. At the same time, we want to be bringing those urban residential zones. Those will require probably more public process. There's just going to be more interest and feedback and understanding how those fit into neighborhoods. And then, so those, I'm guessing, we're planning to kind of bring forward at the same time. And then after that, we would really start to tackle some of the larger recommended changes.
Okay, I'm not trying to put you personally on the spot, Karen, but do you feel that zoning has a place to help progress affordable housing in the city?
We do. So that's one of the kind of the listed goals in the scope and in the RFQ, was to really try to identify tools for affordable housing and opportunities. So, coming out of the Area 3 plan, the plan recommended some neighborhoods don't change, right? They keep that R1 zoning. They're not ready to or open to a change at all. Some neighborhoods were more open to a change, introducing some different uses. So that's the tools we're trying to develop. We know that we have an opportunity to introduce some uses that maybe we don't have a zone for, or if we do have a zone for that use, maybe they're not fitting well into the neighborhood. But those type of uses could be small apartment buildings, quads, just things that allow options other than just single family detached homes in these areas. And I understand I don't I think that there are going to be uses and some crazy ideas that could come out that people are doing across the country that are not going to be a good fit for us. But that's why RPA was interested in getting the report, and then we'll work with the city and partners to determine which things are appropriate to move forward, versus just something that the consultant, thinks might be a good idea, but we know is not really a good fit for the community. So we do want to look at where we can implement affordable housing. And some of those things are going to take, like an ADU, which we've touched on briefly with council, might get revisited, and it might be, something that we want to bring back. We know that is a potential affordable housing option. So just kind of those additional uses are something we would expect to come out of this assessment.
Thank you very much. It's exciting. Thank you.
It is exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the fantastic questions. Chairman, is that an old hand, sir?
Sorry. Yes, it is.
Very good. Councilman Byrd, I see you here. Your hand just popped up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Karen, one of the things that I kind of run into a dilemma with is that when we talk about zoning and changing zoning, a lot of times we bring up affordable housing and try to attach things to it of that nature to say that, hey, this could help affordable housing by creating more density or creating more housing. But I still run into a brick wall because I still look at, if we're not as a city giving pilots or donating land, it's still hard to tell an owner, although I put an ADU in the back of my house, I could still charge $800 for it because it's my ADU. I could charge $1 million. It's just, I can be extreme as I want. And so would this help us figure out ways to even get around that outside of the city donating land or pilots? We have options or ways to say, hey, this area would be affordable housing, although we don't do it, although we don't own it,
Right. So we do want to, I guess we want to not overpromise, right? Just because you have a smaller unit doesn't mean it's affordable, a unit. And just like an ADU, if it's being used as a short-term vacation rental, it's not providing affordable rental housing. So we don't want to overpromise on zoning. I think it is part of the puzzle. You have the ability, we can look at the process for how a unit could get built. But, one of the things we can do as part of this is say, what does it get you? What does it not get you? Yes. Right. So land use and zoning are really kind of addressing that physical built unit. And so some of what you talked about are kind of periphery to that. And maybe we need to be clear in the assessment. We could be addressing this. And if the consultant has recommendations for other pieces that could go into that, that when we talk about that, we can bring those pieces into. I will make a note to add that, to talk to the consultants about that.
Thank you so much.
You good, Councilman?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you for your questions. It is exciting and it's a little frightening at the same time because of what we might learn actually. So Karen, I've got a couple quick questions. Number one, you touched on short-term vacation rentals. I'm glad you mentioned that word. Is that in their scope of work to take a look at and possibly give us advice on the impact of short-term vacation rentals? Number one, if you can give me the shortest answers possible, I am anxious to dive into our cases.
Okay.
This is very important, and I know we have a lot of questions. So I'll start with there. If you can give me 10 seconds.
Okay, we have not specifically listed that, but LDO and RPA have worked on a running list of things that need to be addressed. And we'll be meeting with LDO and the consultant in a kickoff. So I would expect that could be something that could be added to the list and look at the process and the permit itself. And I can add that to the list.
Okay. Question two, do you see this as at all a first step towards possibly eliminating conditional zoning? And if you could just touch on Hamilton County's unique place in Tennessee on conditional zoning, just another 10 seconds. I know I'm doing the speed round on you. But.
Sure. So since the mid 80s, state laws allowed Hamilton County and its jurisdictions to do conditional zoning. I think Mr. Noblet has said somebody else is allowed to do that now. So a lot of times, one of the things that's enabled us to not amend the zoning ordinance, comprehensively has been these, the use of conditions. We spent some time talking to the consultants about that. They understand why conditions are used. They see that elsewhere. And part of the project would be to look at codifying some of the most commonly used conditions, but I don't believe we will be getting a recommendation to completely end the use of conditions.
Okay. Third question, I have about 20, but I'll get with you offline. Are they going to be looking at form-based code at all?
They're not looking at form-based code. Thank you for asking that. That is not part of this project, no.
Very good. So I'm going to stop my questions there, and I really appreciate it because I know we've got a lot of cases to get through. But if you have any questions, council, please reach out to Karen. This is a very important part of where we move forward and why I'm very passionate about zoning in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And I'm very, very glad to be the chairman of this committee because it is something that I think about all the time, and I'm glad to see this coming. And like I said, it's exciting, but it's also a little frightening at the same time of what we're going to get back. So looking at Cameros's portfolio, I've been specifically interested in what their work in Davenport. So if anybody wants to get with me, I'm going to be reaching out to some of the folks in Davenport to try to get some information as well as how it's working, because I think they did a complete zoning ordinance rewrite there as well, though realizing this is a technical report they're giving us. So thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. I do not have any more hands on this item, so I appreciate your time and attention to this. Thank you. Brian, are you ready to jump in? You can jump in once you unmute.
I'm ready. I'll share my screen.
Thank you, sir. We are going to move into ordinances on first reading next week. Planning items. Let's go ahead and start with item A, please. Case number 0090.
Hey, can you see, everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
And you want to move as efficiently as you think you can. I'm sure we can all follow along very quickly.
Okay. This is a request, case 90, to rezone from R1 to RTZ, proposed residential development. This is in North Chattanooga across the river. It's 1.62 acres in size. Number of units is 21, and a total lot count of 24. 3 of those lots are detention ponds. That equates to density of 12.9 dwelling units per acre. Here's an overview of the site. It's 251, 269, and 275 Riverside Drive. You can see to the bottom right, that's Manufacturers Road. To the right of the screen is US 27, and then the site's in the middle here, a little odd-shaped piece of property. It's currently zoned R1. To the north is R1 and R2. To the west is R1, and to the south and east is M1 manufacturing zone. As you can see from the screen, there is no RTZ zones nearby. Here's some of the land uses. You do have industrial uses to the east and south, and to the north and west is single-family detached dwellings. There is no adopted land use plan for this particular piece of property, so we rely on the comp plan. The comp plan identifies this based on intensity levels. This particular property is identified as level 1 and 5. Level 1 has the least potential for development, and level 5 is more appropriate for high intensity development based on access to infrastructure. The property does have some steep slopes to the rear, and we'll see in the pictures in a few minutes, but it does have some steep slope challenges. Staff recommendation was to deny the request. There is no adopted land use plan that serves as guidance for reviewing this request. There are heavy industrial uses that are nearby that staff felt that could pose as nuisances on these residential homes. Riverside Avenue is a very narrow street that may not be able to accommodate high intensity residential uses with multiple curb cuts. And staff also felt there were other zones such as the M2, M1, or O1 may be more appropriate at this location. During Planning Commission review, there was no opposition. Planning Commission felt that the request was compatible with adjacent land uses. and development form of the area and would be an appropriate location for the zone. So Planning Commission recommended to approve. Here are some pictures of the site looking from Riverside Avenue. You can see it's partly cleared. You see to the rear of the site, there are some slope challenges that will have to be addressed by the development. Another view from the site from Riverside Avenue was a single family home on that site. And here's just an aerial view again, just showing you the overall site itself. Again, it's very oddly shaped, irregular shaped. It's zoned R1. And I did just a simple calculation based on the current R1. The developer could get about 9 homes on this property as zoned currently. So again, staff and staff recommend deny, Planning Commission recommend approve. Was no opposition to Planning Commission. So if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Very good. Chairman Henderson, you want to jump in?
I do, and I guess next week, maybe, perhaps, I'd like for transportation to weigh in on this. The road is narrow. I went and visited the site. My question, Brian, and I don't understand a lot of times how staff comes up with some of the recommendations, like in this, for instance, recommended to deny. It is a residential zone already. All we're doing is increasing the intensity a little bit.
That's correct.
So I guess my question is, did staff feel like that this parcel of ground is should not be residential at all? I mean,
no, I think it was the intensity level. You're going from potentially 9 homes to now 21 on a very narrow road. And you have industrial across the road. Necessarily wasn't opposed to RTZ, it's just the number of units. Again, you're increasing the density on a very narrow road.
What did they give her? I mean, did staff have something in mind that they thought was more desirable?
No, we were thinking as far as density numbers.
Yeah.
Not really. We didn't get into that level. We recommended, acknowledge there were other zones out there, like M1 or M2, even R4 may be more appropriate.
Okay, I find I don't know. I just find it interesting. It's a little bit isolated, in fact.
It is
itself.
And you have a railroad line to just right behind it as well.
Yeah.
It's a very irregular shaped lot, the way it's currently divided up.
Did CDOT weigh in on this at all, Brian?
They did not.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman. I'm seeing no other hands on this case. So, Brian, we will move on to B, case 0088.
Okay. This is a request to rezone from R4 special zone to C2 convenience commercial. Proposed use is pharmacy expansion and to consolidate a parcel. It's located at 7302 Jarnigan Road. You see the parcel highlighted in yellow here, just south of Hamilton Place Mall. Gun Barrel Road is to the right. And here's Jarnigan. It's currently zoned R4 with conditions. You have a mixture of zones in this general location. There's R4 and C4 to the north, and C2 as well. To the east is C2. To the west is R4. And to the south is R1 and C2. So you can see it's a wide range of zones in this general location. There's been several history cases along Jarnigan Road, starting in 1996. The parcel just to the right that actually abuts Gun Barrel Road that was rezoned in 1996 from R1 and R4 to C2 with conditions. There were 4 conditions on that property. Then we're moving further west along Jarnigan Road. In 1998, this particular parcel was rezoned from R4 to C2, and that property was conditioned with 3 conditions. And then in 2006, the applicant on that parcel came back and lifted the conditions, and those conditions were replaced with 2 conditions, which was access to Jarnigan Road only, and no drive-through or fast food service establishments, convenience stores, or adult-oriented establishments. And then moving further west in 2003, there were several requests to rezone from R1 to R4. Those were since approved with conditions. Another case further west, same scenario, rezone from R1 to R4 is approved with conditions. Again, the sites highlighted in the yellow on the screen, middle of the screen. To the north is office and commercial uses. To the east is commercial. To the south, you have a large single-family home as well as some commercial uses. And to the west is office uses. This is located in the Hamilton Place Community Plan, which is adopted in 2001. That plan's really old, and we're working currently on Area 11 of plan. But right now, the Hamilton Place Plan recommends office and medium density residential for this particular strip of Jarnigan Road. With conditions, the request is compatible with adopted land use plan, would be an extension of existing zone. So staff recommended 2 conditions: no drive-through fast food services, convenience stores, service stations, or adult-oriented establishments, and existing vegetation except for the removal of invasive species and dead plants, shrubs, shall be maintained within 20 feet of the landscape buffer between low-density residential and the commercial uses, which is to the south. There was no opposition to Planning Commission. Planning Commission found that the request is compatible with the land use plan and adjacent uses and recommended approve with the same conditions. There's no difference in staff and PC conditions. So it's recommended to approve with conditions. And here's some, I'll go through the pictures while Councilman Lever's talking.
Thank you, Brian. I'm seeing no hands. This, of course, is in District 4. I'm very familiar with the project and obviously heard it at Planning Commission as well. Understand it. I like the conditions. Understand the medical facility expansion. The buffer, I think that makes appropriate. I agree with staff. So I have no questions.
I've got one.
Dr. Burrs, go ahead.
Yeah, just quick. You said no drive-through, but only no drive-through with eating. One of the things that we had a problem with in one of my areas, what about drive-through drug pickup?
I think the way this is worded, it says no drive-through fast food services. So that would capture like your McDonald's or Wendy's. I think.
Yeah, I got that. What about drive-through pickup drugs?
This would, I think the way that's worded, that would permit that use. If you want to, like a Walgreens, if you want to drive through and pick up your prescriptions, that would allow that use.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Darren?
I am, understanding the business there, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing, Brian, I don't know if your video's freezing up or you're just really still on me, but.
Okay, no, I'm probably just, I'm froze up, but my screen's still moving, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
You're just really, really still. Okay, I'm seeing no other hands as I'm juggling this a little bit with the slide screen up. So if we would move on to item C, please, case 0089.
Okay, this is a request to rezone from O1 to M2 light industrial zone. Proposed use is light industrial development. It's just right under an acre in size. It's located at 4409 Elwood Lane and 4409 Jersey Pike at the intersection of Bonnie Oaks and Jersey Pike. You see the site highlighted in yellow on the screen. It's currently zoned O1. To the north is R1 and R2. To the west is M2 with conditions. To the southwest is C2. Immediately south is M1. Then to the east, there's a mixture of zones, O1, R1, M2, and C2. Some adjacent uses, this property is currently vacant with a detention pond. To the north is single-family detached residential. To the east is office warehousing. South is commercial, and then across Bonnie Oaks is office and warehousing facilities. And then to the west, you can see it's currently under construction of some type of warehousing facilities. And then further west is multifamily detached apartments. This is in the Highway 58 Community Land Use Plan, which was adopted in 2002. The plan recommendation was business, technology, and parks and recreation. That classification is intended for park or campus-like environments for corporate headquarters, research and development facilities, and office uses. Staff recommended approve with conditions. The request is compatible with adopted land use plan. It is compatible with the surrounding development forms. In order to protect the adjacent single-family residents to the north from potential nuisances, staff felt the conditions should be carried over to the property. Those conditions are a 58-foot buffer of existing vegetation shall be left along the R1 zone and the northern property line. This includes an 8-foot existing utility easement. A 6-foot high chain link security fence shall be constructed along the inside of the buffer, the full length of the M2 zone, and the height of buildings shall be restricted to 35 feet. Planning Commission, there was no opposition. Planning Commission felt the request was compatible with the plan and would be appropriate use. So they approved subject to the same conditions. There was one change in the conditions, which I've highlighted in red on the screen in condition number 3. The way the height requirement was stated in staff's condition was height shall be measured from the average finished ground level adjoining the building at all the exterior walls. Very complicated the way it was worded. So the change from Planning Commission is the height shall be measured from the finished floor elevation of slab. So that was the difference in the conditions, but it does come to you from Planning Commission approval with 3 conditions. I have talked to Councilman Gilbert, and I think he has some additional conditions he would like for me to read into the record. If he wants, I guess, confirm that, I'll be glad to read those.
Yes, sir. Before I call on him, let me just make one quick note. In your packet, you will see that's referenced as District 4. So we've already asked that to be changed to District 5. Councilman Gilbert?
Yes, can you go ahead and read that, please?
Yes, I can. So in addition to 3 conditions you see on the screen, Councilman Gilbert has forwarded 5 additional conditions to be added. Most of those are restricting uses to protect that residential subdivision to the north. No telecommunication towers shall be permitted. No microwave towers shall be permitted. No rug cleaning operations shall be permitted. The retention pond, which is shown on parcel 129IL014, shall remain its current location. And finally, another condition is active textile dyeing on the site shall be prohibited. So it's really trying to get at some of those nuisance uses that are permitted in the M2 to prohibit those so they don't impact the residential to the north.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Councilman Gilbert, are you good with those conditions?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. I know that property has some previous zoning history, so I know you're all over it. Thank you, Brian. If we would move on to case D 0091.
This is a request to rezone from M2 light industrial zone to UGC, urban commercial zone. Proposed use is to develop affordable housing units. Approximate acreage of the site is 2.41. Proposed number of units is 60 units, which has a density of 24.8 dwelling units per acre. Property is located at 1815 East Main Street. You can see the property highlighted on the screen in yellow. Just to the south is Main Street, South Orchard Knob to the right. This is currently zoned M2. To the north is R1 and RTZ. To the west is R1 and R4. To the east is R1 and C2. And of course, south of the site is C2 and R2. There is some zoning history on this property and adjacent properties. In 1994, this property was rezoned from R2 and C2 to M2. Then in 2009, the property was donated to the city. Then in 2016, the city surplused this property with the RFP with the intention of creating an urban mixed-use neighborhood-friendly development. And that occurred in 2016. And you can see the resolution number on the screen. This is a current vacant warehousing facility. To the north is single-family detached. To the northeast is single-family detached uses. To the east is commercial and single-family. To the west is single-family detached residential. And to the south is single-family detached and commercial uses. This is in the most recent plan that the council just recently adopted, the Area 3 plan, the Historic River to Ridge plan, which recommends urban corridor for East Main Street. The urban corridor is defined as providing a mix of housing, services, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly environment at a scale that supports transit. Densities are really high, 20 dwelling units per acre or higher. It contains a broad mix of uses, including multifamily, professional offices, institutional uses, retail, and light industrial. Residential uses over retail or offices are common in this place type. Buildings front directly on the street with minimal setbacks. Buildings occupy at least 80% of the primary road frontage. In this case, it would be Main Street, with parking to the rear or side and screened from adjacent streets. And building heights are typically up to 4 stories, with some exceptions made for 6 stories in this place type. Staff recommended approve with conditions. The request is compatible with the Historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan. It is compatible with adjacent uses. There is precedent in the area for UGC zones in this location. So staff recommend approve with 2 conditions: no drive-throughs, no adult-oriented establishments, no auto-oriented uses, no self-service storage facilities, and wholesaling with accessory warehousing shall be prohibited. And because this does abut up to residential dwellings to the north, staff did have a concern with height restrictions. So staff placed a condition: building height shall be restricted to 2 stories within 30 feet of East 14th Street. So it doesn't apply to the entire property, but it's only a section of that. There was no opposition at Planning Commission. Planning Commission felt the request is compatible with the area plan and recommended to approve with the same 2 conditions. So here's some pictures of the site. This is across the street, Armando's. This is a view looking north on East Main. The site just to your left. These are some of the homes that are north of the site, right across the street from this property. That's why we put the condition on the height restriction. This is looking south of the site. And then this is to provide you an aerial view of that existing building on site. So staff and PC recommend to approve with 2 conditions.
Very good. I see a hand. Councilman Gilbert, is that an old hand, sir? It looks like that's an old hand. Councilman Byrd, are you good?
Yes, Chair. Truly happy with this project and have no questions.
Very good. I'm seeing no other hands, Brian. So let us proceed on to item E, case 0092.
Okay. This is a request as well as on East Main Street to rezone from R3 to UGC, urban commercial zone, for proposed new office warehouse and possible mixed use residential above. This acreage of this site is 0.26 acres in size, very small lot. It's located at 1006 East 14th Street. You see on the screen for Fagan Street at East Main. The property is just north of East Main along East 14th. It's currently zoned R3. To the north is M1. To the west of the site, you have R3, UGC, and then further west, there's RTZ zoning. To the south is M1 manufacturing, C2, R3. Then to the east is R3. So you can see in this general vicinity, there is precedent for UGC in this general location. In 2017, not on this particular site, but to the west of this site, there were several requests to rezone these properties at the corner of Fagan and 14th from R3 to eventually RTZ and then eventually UGC. Those were approved with no conditions. And then 2019, you see at the corner of Fagan and 14th Street, that was rezoned from RTZ to UGC with conditions, limited to no auto-oriented uses, adult-oriented uses, hospitals or commercial uses, and only residential uses shall be permitted on this site. Here's the land use plan or land use map. We have manufacturing warehousing to the north. To the south is commercial. To the west is single-family detached residential and mixed use. And then toward the east are 2-family detached residential on vacant land. Again, this is in the new Area 3 plan, Historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan, which recommends mixed residential. It has a wide range of housing options. It features moderate or high intensity housing options, multi-story apartments, condos, etc. The thing with this place type, the predominant land use is residential with limited neighborhood serving businesses such as coffee shops, bakeries, and restaurants. So in essence, you would need a zone that would allow a limited use of commercial. And hopefully when we do a zoning code assessment, that will create some new zoning tools, because right now we're relying on UGC to fulfill these place types. So this is one example of why we need the zoning code assessment. So this staff recommended this case to approve with conditions. It does meet the intent of the Historic River to Ridge plan. One of the things that staff did try to do is place a condition on the property restricting or requiring a certain percentage of residential uses, because that place type, the primary use is residential and not commercial. So what staff recommended was approve with the 4 conditions: uses limited to residential and office uses only. 70% of the gross floor area shall be residential uses. Maximum building height of 2 stories, and commercial vehicular access from the alley only. Again, the reason we put 70% in there was to try to get residential as part of the development proposal. There was no opposition at Planning Commission. Planning Commission determined that if we put conditions on the property requiring residential, that it would comply with the goals of the Area 3 plan. And so Planning Commission recommended to approve with 4 conditions. There were some tweaks to those conditions, which I've highlighted in red on the screen. With condition number 1, Planning Commission added business use to number 1. Number 2, staff recommended 70%. Planning Commission recommended 50% of the gross floor area be required for residential. Then condition number 3, it's a change of 2.5 stories to 35 feet. That way it's a definite number instead of just stories. And then condition number 4 stays the same. So here's a view of the site looking from East 14th. You can see it's vacant. You have residential on either side. Again, another view of the site and what's next door. This is a view looking down 14th Street towards Central Avenue. You can see there's a church and some single-family detached dwellings. And this is the warehousing facility directly across the street from the site on 14th Street. This is a view south of the site. I believe this business is expanding. And here's your aerial view. The site is just right here between these trees. This is the site plan that was submitted with a request. Then this is a rendering that was submitted with the request. We typically don't review site plans, but I thought it'd be important to show City Council what that building would look like. And this is a view looking at the site from East 14th Street. So again, this comes to you as the council from Planning Commission with a recommendation to approve with 4 conditions.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Before I call on Councilman Byrd, Brian, site plans are not tied to this, correct?
They're not.
Provided
They're not.
for a visual reference. I know we talk about that quite a bit, and we'll continue to talk about site plans and being tied to zoning. Councilman Byrd?
I'm okay right now. I got some conversation that me and John Bridger had a couple of weeks ago, but right now I'm okay.
Okay. Very good. Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Brian?
Yes,
we're
sir.
going to move on to case F, case number 0093.
Okay.
And before you start, this case has in your packet listed District 0, which is obviously supposed to be District 7.
Is it 7? I think this is District 9. I think this is District 9.
Wait a minute,
5?
hold on one second, if you please, Chairman Ledford.
Yes,
Where
sir.
exactly, I was just looking at my notes and looking at the map. Brian, where exactly is this location at? Because I do have an area on 51st in my district, just to make sure I get clarification.
I believe, I could be wrong, I think this is District 9.
9.
9, I believe so. I'll check. I believe it's District 9. This is right on the state line.
Yes.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is District 9, Councilman.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Let's make sure we get that.
It's right on the state line.
We'll research that. But
I'll research. I think it's 9, though. Okay, this is a request to rezone from R1 and R3 to R3 and A1 for an urban aquaponics farm and multifamily. Overall site is about 5.3 acres in site. It's located, it doesn't really have an address. Again, it's at East 51st Street. It's just on the state line with Georgia. You see Rossville Boulevard sits here. I believe it's right on the state line where, again, it's Tanaka Trail. I believe that is the state line borders. That is correct. This currently is zoned R3 and R1. To the north is R1, to the west is R1, and of course to the east is R1 and R2. In 1998, this little triangle piece was rezoned from R1 to R3 with conditions subject to property being developed in accordance with the site plan, but that's not part of this request. It's a vacant piece of property. To the north is single-family detached residential. To the east is single-family residential. To the west is single family. Of course, to the south in Georgia, you have residential and commercial uses. This is in a small portion. This is in the Rossville Boulevard plan, which is adopted in 2004. That plan recommends single family residential. That plan's somewhat 16 years old, and it's just a small sliver. So we rely on the comp plan for guidance, and the comp plan recommends levels 1 and 3. And 2 has wide range of intensity levels based on topography, but level 2 and 3 says, recommends some type of development occur on the site. Staff recommended approve with conditions. It does comply with the land use plan. Multifamily does blend in with single family if appropriate conditions are put in place. This is uncommon. We do have a request to rezone for a small portion of the site for A1. That does require a minimum of 5 acres in size. A portion of this site's already zoned R3, which can do multifamily. The site plan submitted does comply with A1 requirements. So again, staff recommend to approve with one condition that only applies to the A1 zone portion of the property. No livestock or fowl shall be permitted. There was no opposition at Planning Commission. Planning Commission felt the request was compatible land use plan and does comply with the A1 urban agriculture district site plan requirements. So Planning Commission recommend to approve with the same condition restricting uses in the A1 site. A1 zone. Here's a view of the site. You see it does have some topography challenges. Here's a view looking east of some of the single family detached dwellings. A view south, you see some of the single family detached dwellings. This is a view north, again, more single family detached dwellings. This is west of the site. And this is the proposed site plan that was made. Again, we don't review site plans, but it was needed because of the A1. But again, this does come to you guys with approval with condition.
Very good. I have one hand. Councilman Mitchell, I see your hand, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I probably ought to ask Councilman Henderson this question because he would know, but I'm thinking that if you have over 2 acres, you can allow chickens. Is it 2 acres or 2.5, Mr. Henderson?
Well, there's a lot of variables to that. It's 2 acres if you've been keeping chickens since 1992, I think.
All right.
If you have 5 acres, there's no conditions. You keep whatever you want to on 5 acres, unless you go to an A1 with a special permit. And if you have 1.5 acres and a special permit, then you can keep chickens or whatever you'd like to.
That is correct.
All right, so I guess my question would be, how can we prevent fowl from being on this property just through a condition when obviously all the other things say it is legal to do that?
He did not submit a site plan. If you look at the A1, and in order to do livestock or fowl, there's certain standards you have to meet in terms of spacing from existing homes, where you keep the feed. That was not shown on the site plan. So therefore we took it to mean, since the use is urban aquaponics, to be on the safe side, we need to put a condition, no livestock or fowl shall be permitted. Hope that answers your question.
Well, I mean, I'm all for being on the safe side of things. I'm just not sure how we can do something in zoning that trumps a law of a person's right to have fowl. I guess if they want the zone to do what they want to do, I guess we can do that. It just seems a little bit, doesn't seem quite right to me, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Maybe that's something maybe Mr. Noblitt can help answer for us.
Brian, do you want to, this was a really interesting case in the presentation in Planning Commission. I remember this one vividly. I read it like 2 or 3 times because the applicant did a fantastic job at actually going through A1 and actually listing there. Do you remember that, Brian?
Yeah, and really, if you look at the site plan, the uses.
Listing what they intended to do. Now, you have a very good point. I would not feel at all uncomfortable in asking for them to accept a condition like that because they actually stated, Brian, refresh my memory, but they stated no animals are going to be on this on this property at all. They have no intent for animals.
No intention. Correct. If you look at the site plan, what they're showing, again, we don't look at site plans, we don't review those, but the A1 is a little different in that you have to meet certain standards in order to have livestock. What they're showing is just greenhouses, basically. So that's why we as staff felt, if they are going to do the livestock, you have to meet certain standards. They're not showing those, so we don't feel comfortable recommending A1 unless you restrict out those uses.
Right. So I would probably not a betting man by any means, but I would say the applicant would probably be very amenable to that, because that's what I read in their case presentation at Planning Commission, was no animals whatsoever.
And from memory, I don't think he objected at all at Planning Commission to those conditions.
So we'll need to probably think about that and maybe get with Councilwoman Coonrod. That's a great point, Councilman Mitchell.
I just don't see how we use zoning to prevent something that's legal, but I guess we can do that. So I'll follow whoever the council person's district it is.
If you'd like the legal part of this, I'll be glad to give you an explanation. Section 7107 of the code is the animal provisions of the city code. And it says that it's unlawful for anybody to keep fowl on their property unless it has a tract of land containing 5 or more contiguous acres, and they have to be maintained in a manner that does not constitute a nuisance. If they have never used them for that property, then they have not done so. The ordinance was amended at one point here in 2005 to say that any person keeping chickens or roosters on a tract that has 2 or more acres prior to December 1st of 2005 could continue to do that, provided that they didn't discontinue that use for 30 days. So the ordinance is specifically aligned to those folks that have actually had it for an agricultural use and have used it that way before. And that has not occurred here.
Okay, all right. I don't want to pick on chickens, but I'm okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate it. Brian, we have one resolution, a special exceptions permit under planning for an existing liquor store.
Okay.
In District 5, right, Phil?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on that item? Russell, is that an old hand or new hand, sir? Councilman Gilbert? Can anybody see him?
Can we stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, if you don't mind. You want to unmute, Councilman?
Yeah, I'm on mute. I'm off mute now.
Okay, there you are.
On this, it's just changing ownership. It's currently as a liquor store currently, right now.
Yes, sir. It's just a change in ownership.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
You good?
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that concludes our cases. I feel like we have listed on our agenda briefing on zoning code assessment. And Brian, I believe, are you still with us?
I am.
I believe we've really kind of covered that at the beginning, if that's what this is referring to.
That's what that's referring to. I believe that's on your agenda tonight for adoption.
Right. So I will allow time if anybody would like to ask further questions, but I feel like Ms. Rennick covered our questions earlier. So if you have any questions, I'll look for your hands. If not, Mr. Chairman, I will adjourn us until 6 p.m.
I think if we have time, well, maybe we'll have to do it another time. I think we were going to try to do an attorney-client privilege. What's the pleasure of the council? We have about less than 15 minutes.
I'm good. I can jump back in.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Mr. Noblet, I guess, Mr. Holland needs to log back in.
Yes, sir. Mr. Holland. Yes,
okay. Sir. Mr. Holland, if you'd log back in with us, we're going to leave and come back in attorney-client privilege just briefly.
Mr. Chair, I will have to email him a link in order to get into that meeting, so he needs to check his email here in just a second.
Okay. Mr. Holland, if you'll check your email, sir. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.